Since Snake Eyes, it has been this series of masterpieces. After Snake Eyes, it was The Addiction, and then The Funeral. And watching each of these films, you're aware that everything that Abel wants to express is there in every shot of the film. And that there's a wonderful example in The Addiction um, when Lily Taylor's character she's just been attacked by the vampire, and she goes to a hospital, and there's a shot where she's talking to a police officer about the attack, and she walks away from the police officer and sits down next to a man who has been injured in some way. And Abel divides the shot in half exactly. So on one half of the screen you have Lily Taylor, and the other half you have this man who has nothing to do with the plot, nothing to do with the narrative of The Addiction. Now that is at the heart of all of Abel's films. There is nobody superfluous in this world. No one character's problems are more important than anybody else's. There are no extras. Everyone is observed with absolute love and absolute tolerance. That is the morality of the films. There are no villains in these films. And you can look at every shot of pretty much every film that he's made, and you'll see this same love for all human beings expressed constantly on screen.
I'd seen the script for The Funeral for about 5 years. Nicky St. John and I had many, we share the same. Nicky's is just a great guy, intelligent guy, another tormented Catholic, a guy who's written 8 of Abe's films, and everyone has been condemned by the Catholic Church. He's a guy who goes to church every day. I admire his attempt at his personal, road to redemption, spirituality, whatever. So, from what I understand, this sort of was about. This was sort of based on Nicky's uncle, who lived up in Peekskill, and our uncles, and these guys were sort of radical gangsters, or at least the Vince Gallo character was sort of a radical gangster. Well, maybe the elder brothers were not.
I think one thing that really has to be said is that the relationship between Abel Ferrara and Nicky Oliverio St. John was key to all of us working for all those years. I don't think that can be overlooked. I think that is critical to the whole setup. I mean, Nicky was, there was a point in time, and it was around Bad Lieutenant, I think, where Nicky, just for whatever reason, did not want to be involved in it. He didn't write the script. He just was off. And that was
Didn't approve of the subject
He didn't
matter.
approve of the subject matter. And that was where the divide began, as far as I could see. And then he came back on board after that, which was, I guess,
Body Snatchers.
And then The Funeral was really Nicky's.
That was a script that had been around for a while.
Yeah, it had been around for a
Just
while.
like
That was-
King of New York,
that
that
was
script
his
was
beat.
the,
That's
remember,
right.
that was the Frank White
That's exactly
project,
right. And then that falling out, I think, was the beginning of the whole team and the whole band kind of splitting up. I mean, I think it was really critical. That was like the Mick and Keith of the group, and I don't know what the specifics of that were. I mean, they went back so far, but that was it.
I had nothing to do with The Funeral, but then that was like a 2-year hiatus I took from Abel while I got my strength back, and then we did Blackout, and Abel Ferrara's Blackout. That should have been titled that, like Mickey Spillane's Girl Hunters. Abel Ferrara's Blackout.
We only had one licensed song in the Blackout, a U2 song called Miami, which is in twice. Everything else is original. All of the songs were written especially for this picture. We brought in a hip hop rap artist for one serious rap song that Schooley did, and he did together, and I mean, it was just a hybrid of very interesting combinations of special guests. when you copyright music in Italy, they still require you to give the lyric sheets and the music written out, the lead sheets. And whereas here you can give an audio cassette or CD and that's perfectly acceptable. Well, I don't know how much time you spent listening to the music in the movie, to the Blackout, but it's sexually explicit lyrics. God bless them. They loved the music in the film and record and were incredibly supportive and thrilled that the film was selected as part of the 50th anniversary Cannes Film Festival. And so him acknowledging me in such a sensitive and sincere way at Cannes after I had worked so hard for so many months was very special to me, and I really appreciated it.
Another one of his very greatest films, Nero's Hotel. And I'm furious with the way that this film has been so casually misunderstood by most commentators. I can't imagine how Abel feels. I know it upsets him, the way that film has been so casually dismissed. Frankly, I don't know how he lives with it.
The film was quite unsuccessful, I thought, and Abel I don't think his head was in it, quite frankly. I'm sorry to say, but it's a personality thing, and I walked off the film. But obviously, my filmography with Abel is the most important thing in my career. And I've done a lot of this stuff, but as far as I'm concerned, the only stuff worth mentioning is the stuff I did with Abel. I love it. It's my total favorite. If I die right now, I'll know that forever good work will exist. I got to do stuff. I got to experiment on film. I got to, because my idea of editing is rewriting, filmic language. And Abel was fully prepared to let me do anything I wanted to go to that extreme. He's a bit of an anarchist. I'm a bit of an anarchist. Anything goes. Destroy the establishment. Destroy all monsters. Fuck Hollywood. We're anti-Hollywood. And that's what I like. I'll tell you what it is. The best film that we could have made is with in Bad Lieutenant we almost succeeded. When the audience comes out of that theater, they're so incensed they burn the theater down. That would have been the ideal, and I think we almost made it with Bad Lieutenant, where they were so incensed they went berserk.
With Abe, usually I get I always make sure that I'm involved in a post. He is most definitely, very, very, very concerned that I'll be there to finish it. And I'll go through a couple of answer prints, but he likes the films darker and darker and darker. On our Xmas, despite all this, we wanted to do the silver retention, the skip bleach process, which I was concerned because I was afraid that the whole that they would not, because it's done in the printing process, that once we did a negative pickup, the Europeans that we sold to would not do the more expensive process. So I just lit it with virtually no contrast. With no fill light.
The only thing I really did on that one was to rescue the production, and I think that's what I was called in to do, from a terrifying contractual dispute between the principals involved in this. And I don't want to particularly go on with it because my job there was to not do anything other than see to it that everybody finally agreed that the picture would be made. Unless that happened, the picture would have never been made. There were too many disputes amongst the creative and business people. Finally, that was resolved and the picture was made.
That's what happens. Unfortunately, that's Abel's personal curse, is that he finds people that are not real strong in the honesty department when it comes to distributing films.
I've always been fascinated by Abel Ferrara's films, and I have been writing a book about them for the last 5 years. During the course of those 5 years, people who I've told about this book often ask me what it is that interests me about Abel Ferrara's work. And I could never answer that question. I was always very embarrassed by my inability to answer that question, until finally I realized that that was the answer to the question, that these films were too complex to be summed up in any simple statement, that they were about people who could not be summed up. They refused to limit their characters in any way. There were never any adequate psychological explanations for people. There were never any adequate sociological explanations. These people are always too complex for any reductive formula that the films might impose on them. And there's a constant sense of life breaking out of the edges of the frame.
So far as the people that I have worked with or worked for, I think Abel is the most interesting, the most human, the one with the best sense of humor, the most unpredictable, and perhaps, in a sense, the weakest.
You know, I want everyone to get their wallets out. You know, I'm not doing this unless I get some of the fucking cash shit. You know what I'm saying, man?
There was just not a real lot of separation between his life and his films, in a way. I'm not saying that, you know, he went home to a nightclub. I don't know what he went home to, but I just felt that there was something real about him and real about his relationship to what he was shooting.
Someone recently, just a couple of months ago, said, "So when's the last time you worked with Abel?" And I said, "The Funeral was what was the last picture, but it started in 1981, and that was a good 16-year run."
Yeah,
and a
that's
very
right.
well-known producer in Hollywood said to me, "Well, that's a career in itself."
That's right.
And that kind of perspective you don't always focus on, because, you know, we made a lot of pictures and they were also exhausting.
Oh yeah, he had his hands in his pockets a lot. He'd wear these blazers. Let's see if I can. I'm not doing it fast enough.
He can be very irascible and grumpy.
I don't care how much money you have on you right now. Yeah. Forget about checks.
And then he can be very thoughtful.
Yeah, it's great, but, you know, am I going to see any money out of this? You know what I'm saying? Come on, you guys must have a few bucks on you.
Hey, what do you say? What do you say? That's it.
Poison ivy.